This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, this is Dev Ahuja. I'm the CFO of Novelis. Welcome to the CFO Thought Leadership Podcast.
This is episode 985.
Not only is this, to me, category creating technology, but we were in a year last year of commercialization. How do we start to sell that technology in a repeatable, meaningful way? So I saw the growth and I knew the go-to-market side of the financial sort of strategic piece they needed from a CFO I had. And so I felt really good moving into this position and being able to support the leadership team and the board on thinking through how do we commercialize this business.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Sarah Alper, CFO of Pactum AI. As Pactum AI embarks on a pivotal phase of commercialization, the arrival of Sarah Alper inside the AI-driven company's CFO office is by no means an accident. Having transitioned from the structured finance roles of General Electric to the dynamic environment of UiPath, Sarah Alper's career blend of operational finance, strategic planning, and transformational technologies arguably made her an optimal CFO candidate. We'll learn about Alper's career journey as well as her priorities when it comes to pricing, packaging, and positioning inside the realm of AI-powered negotiation. We speak with Sarah Alper after this. CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. Hello, we're speaking with Sarah Alper, CFO of Pactum AI. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, Jack. How are you? Nice to meet you, and looking forward to spending some time with you here this afternoon on International Women's Day.
Oh, no, is it really? Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Well, then shame on me. And it's wonderful to have you then on just such a day. Sarah, as you might know, we're going to begin by asking you to look back. We see a number of marquee names on your resume looking back, so we were really intrigued. But would you go back in time for us and just identify some of those experiences you feel prepared to?
Sure. So as I think back kind of on my career and where I am today, as in my, just completed my first year as a CFO at an early stage hyper-growth startup, I kind of think there's a combination of experiences, obviously, that get me to this point. But I think of them as like operating experience, strategic experience, and just an overall leadership kind of mindset and training that has really prepared me for the role. When I look back, operating experience, and you and I talked about this a little bit ago, I spent 10 years at General Electric, at GE. I'll call it in the 2010s, so right in that kind of era. And as I think many folks know, but I'll just repeat it for the newbies out there, I mean, that was really a premier breeding ground, if you will, for finance leaders. It's created a ton of CEOs and top CFOs out there in public companies today, but while you were there at the business, it afforded you, and at GE, because it was this conglomerate of industrial and capital businesses as well as corporate, it gave you just such a wide variety of business experiences to kind of build your career path around. And it had strongly desired and hard to get into leadership programs and training. So while I was at GE, I had the privilege of 6 different roles in my time. I participated in the Experience Financial Leadership Program. And overall, they had best in class processes. So, from an operating perspective, you got lots of volume, there was constant change. And specifically in kind of my role as a corporate finance manager in GE back in those days, I supported our corporate IT and applications business, a few $100 million in spend, and working with some of the smartest, most interesting technologists in the books. And for me, it was just a really interesting place to learn how to close your books monthly, understand what capitalized software was, and ultimately manage the investment that was going into the business, because that was one of the things GE always invested in, was the technology and digital businesses. So that operating experience, I think, kind of really for me comes from a lot from that, the basis of that. Then I kind of look at the strategic experiences that I got. And I would say, of course, I got those along the way, but the 2 experiences, and this isn't just a whole career pathing, but leaving GE and moving into what I'll call the New York IPO tech startup scene, these hyper growth companies. I spent time at 2 companies, one in the ad tech, MarTech space, and one, that is obviously a career highlight for me at UiPath, where, I got first of all, I was on the senior leadership team of both of these companies. So unlike GE, where 100,000 employees work there, these were much smaller organizations when I joined, and coming in as the head of FP&A in both of those positions, and leading finance transformation in a lot of different ways and capacity, at least in the first job there, really gave me kind of a bird's eye view to the strategic decision making of other C-suite folks. And it gave me the opportunity to build foundational operating models for those businesses, work with, fundraising and speaking to investors. And that ultimately, led me to having a front seat at the UiPath IPO, which to me was a very obviously, the most probably strategic experience up until this point that I've had in my career, until now, becoming the CFO of Pactum, which is obviously all of it combined, but great. And then the last thing I just kind of say on that leadership mindset for me, one, I think I was just naturally born with it a little. I was raised by a very strong mother and father who expected me to excel, and that's just a little bit of who I am. And I'm happy to meet that challenge. But then, really, again, training from those early days, participating in those leadership programs and learning how to work with other parts of the business, influence, people and how to influence them, as well as executive coaching. At UiPath, they had a really strong executive coaching program for the leadership team. And that was really my first foray into truly kind of learning my leadership style, the type of leader that I am. And, again, just being able to harness those things that are strengths for my leadership and, think about the things that I wanted to continue to work on as a leader.
Wow, that's a very nice overview for us. Thank you for that. I want to just let the listeners know that from the start, you had something of a traditional path with the Big Five. You were with both Pricewaterhouse and Deloitte for a number of years. And when you do move into industry, you move into Pfizer, another big name, where you were there 2 years. And I guess GE was a little too tempting. An opportunity came forward and you jumped into the GE world. And how's that for a short summation of your early years?
Yeah, that's a good summation.
Yeah, and it seems like your decision making over time when you moved into new roles, and again, I think you were at GE roughly 10 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's clear you were able to take advantage of so much of their development, leadership development, or what have you, those types of programs at GE. But what the surprise is that you go to UiPath And the coaching program, I think you emphasized it for a reason, and that is not a company that size. You don't necessarily go there expecting to have these types of offerings. Am I right about that, or what was your experience in that respect?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had, training like we talked about in different levels, but for me, executive coaching, not that it was therapy because it's not, but it helps you learn about the person that you are from a business perspective and why you're that way. And I had never really had that type of insightful or maybe just impactful experience in my previous kind of coaching and training sessions. And it was all about me, and it was an investment. I mean, it was, I want to say once a month we met for at least a year and a half. And it was us. And we were talking through true business problems and business situations and personal things too, but that I was going through in that moment. I think, the fact that UiPath kind of provided that, and I don't know where the genesis of that truly came from, but I think our SLT was working with a executive coaching team and offered that down to, I'll say, the next level for all of us. And as I reflect back on it, it probably really was a good way to bring us together because we grew like a rocket ship is an under definition of what I feel like we experienced there. It was growing so fast, so many new people getting hired into the organization constantly, some change, and whether that be a go-to-market shift or a new leader coming in. There was a lot going on, and we are getting ready for an IPO, getting ready to be a public company with a number of folks that had not held those public positions in the past. And so I think, it brought together that management team and that leadership sort of style that we wanted to have. But the other thing I'd just say is that I loved about that experience was the culture. I mean, the culture was one of bold, fast, humble, and immersed. And when you're bringing together again so many experts that have done this in all of their different, in all their different experiences from top name companies, everybody's got a different idea of culture. And I think this was a good way to kind of, again, hone in on those things and get us all as an SLT brought together. So for me, it was very meaningful.
We're interested in your communication skills, and at GE, I know it's sort of famous for helping develop those skills. I'm wondering if there was a time though where there was a big presentation to senior leaders of some kind, and I'm sure there were all sorts of different scenarios, but one scenario that really puts you on the spot, and you had to step up, and it was the first time you recall perhaps having whoever your boss or mentor might have been and saying, okay, it's your turn.
Yeah.
Anything come to mind?
Something does actually. And it was a great learning experience for me too, when you bring that up. And I just remembered it right now. It wasn't in anything I thought about before. So when I joined Pfizer, I joined their internal audit department. And I was more in a compliance role, basically doing internal investigations for the business. So as things would get raised through their hotline or whatever, I would work with the legal team, and we'd do the financial analysis on whatever that concern may have been. And as a part of that, when I first joined Pfizer, I traveled a ton in that role and that job. I traveled a ton internationally. And my first kind of 2 weeks on the job, they said, we're rolling out a new playbook or blue book, I think they called it. It was their code of conduct for the company. And again, at Pfizer, you've got a lot of sales reps that are going into pharmaceutical and doctors' offices, and in international locations, oftentimes physicians can be government officials. And so there's kind of this like potential FCPA risk and things like that you want to think about. And so that was addressed in the Blue Book. And I remember in my first couple of weeks, they said, we're sending you one to Croatia. You're going immediately there for something we need to work on. So in the first couple of weeks, I was on a plane to Croatia with one other person. And they said, and from there, you're going to go to India and you're going to do the training with the legal guys on the Blue Book. We need a finance person there to kind of represent some of these things. And it was like, I remember going into that room in a new country I'd never been in, and the room was the size of a football field. It was huge. Now, it wasn't filled with that many people, but it was just an enormous room. I'm in my first month on the job. I'm learning the blue book, and I've got a slide on the stage, and it says, the word, I'm going through all my slides, and there was a word on one of the slides, preceptorship. And I had no idea what that was. And someone asks in the audience, what is a preceptorship? Now, a preceptorship, for those of you that don't know, or I don't know if this is even a real term anymore, but it's a mentorship for people that want to possibly be in a physician's office one day. They get to sit in the physician's office and watch the physician perform a surgery or whatever. So I had no idea what it was, though. And I always think back on that moment and think, I will never have a word, a number, anything on a page that I'm presenting that I cannot explain. It was fine. A legal guy said, Gary, I need your help here, right? Or whomever. Yeah. And he stood up. But I remember in that moment being so embarrassed because I thought I prepped so much and I didn't think about this slide and what that word meant because it was kind of given to me to go pitch. Anyway, that's one thing I would kind of reflect back on.
Wow. Great takeaway for us. Thank you. I would imagine it's a recruiter ultimately who helps you find your footing outside of GE, or was it a relationship?
So that one was more of a relationship. So first of all, after 10, 11 years at GE, the way to move up and around in a lot of these businesses is you got to be mobile and you got to move your family. And we couldn't do that. My husband has a business here where we live in our town, actually, that he started when we first got married, when we first met, frankly. And so I knew me being mobile wasn't going to, I couldn't go anywhere. And I'd spent 10, 11 years there and I loved tech. So I got a lot of experience at GE supporting that IT organization, working in the GE digital business, and some other kind of technology experiences I had while I was there, rolling out Oracle Fusion, the largest ERP implementation going at that time, going on stage at Open World. And so, I loved working with technology people. So, and New York was kind of becoming this like tech hub. So I said, I'm going to find a gig in a tech company and leverage my finance experience in one of them. And it just so happened someone was looking for a finance transformation person. So that ERP experience that I had at Digital transferred very well into, being able to help this company get their IPO readiness going with their systems. And they didn't have an FP&A leader. And he basically combined both. The CFO I got hired under and said, listen, I love your background. You can do the finance transformation, i.e. systems implementation work, get us on a new ERP, get our equity system and a couple other things going. And you can build out FP&A for us. What do you say? And I thought, sure, I love it. I want to do it. And I had met a number of other folks, but that was actually an outreach from that CFO that somehow found my profile.
Excellent. Well, you touched on building out FP&A. That's something we'll like to talk to you about after we find out more about Pactum AI. Want to point out, what was it, 6 years after leaving GE, 6 years roughly, you step into the role at Pactum. Is that right?
Yep. About that. Yeah.
And so, again, you had two companies in between, both senior management, senior leaders of those companies. And as you described, IPO readiness became an important part of your resume and experience. But first, let's ask you about Pactum AI. What does this company do? What are its offerings? And then we'll come back and ask you about your arrival there.
Yeah. Okay, great. So at Pactum AI, we're using AI to autonomously conduct negotiations on behalf of some of the world's largest companies. Today, we focus on negotiations between our customers and their suppliers, where these large organizations are just unable to manage all of their suppliers. And oftentimes, they're sitting in legacy contracts that have been untouched for some time. And ultimately, they're leaving a lot of value on the table for themselves and their customer and their suppliers. So with Pactum, our customers are able to conduct thousands of negotiations simultaneously through a digital agent that is able to engage suppliers and conclude on deals on our customers' behalf. So when people first hear this, they kind of think, oh, we're just replacing humans and negotiators or just squeezing our suppliers. But it's so much more interesting than that, because AI is there and it's enabling us to negotiate contracts that we would never have previously economically been able to do with human negotiators. And now they're able to spend more time on preparing for the negotiation if they need to, engaging with their suppliers and more strategic suppliers in some cases. But they don't necessarily have to conduct the entire negotiation. Our technology and software does that in a rules-based way. And coming from a Fortune 100 company, I know from personal experience, the vast majority of contracts out there, it's kind of that 80-20 rule. People just don't spend time on. They're sitting in standard cookie cutter terms, where, with Pactum, you can now manage those suppliers and you can have a relationship with them that you didn't have in the past. I think that other interesting pieces with AI, right? So Pactum has been AI since its inception. We weren't a part of this generational AI, wave, I'd say, that came out mid last year, though I'll say we've benefited a lot from it because we have been inherently AI from the beginning. But for us, again, it's not just about, working on behalf of humans. We like the technology and the algorithms and the models behind this that are allowing us to create what I'll call a bigger pie. So everybody wants a bigger slice of the pie. We can create a bigger pie with the AI piece of this. So we're creating more value on both sides of these negotiations, and we're able to create that value that can give us hard savings and true efficiency gains at our customers.
Now, I think there was maybe a capital raise in the last 12 months, but could you give us maybe an abbreviated history of the company's capital structure?
Yeah, so we're private and VC backed. We've ran two kind of mini seed, a seed and a pre-seed and a seed round, and then an A and an A2. So, the company has great European VCs in our back, Atomico, 3VC, and Project A, plus a number of other, great names in our cap table.
I want to ask about this offering, though. It's not just helping negotiate with SaaS suppliers, other SaaS vendors that you use.
No.
This is the full, any of your vendors or companies that do business with you.
Yeah. Actually, I'd say we primarily start typically in the indirect side. So indirect spend versus direct spend. And the way to think about that is I kind of liken it to a factory. In a factory, the indirect spend that goes into that factory is the gloves and the safety goggles and the things that workers wear or the equipment maybe that they use to build. That's the indirect spend when you buy gloves and safety goggles. Direct is the output of the factory. It's the stuff that's coming out of that factory. I'll just, I'll use an automobile example. The nuts and bolts that come out of that factory that then go into the car. That's a direct material that goes into that vehicle. So we start a lot of times with our customers in the indirect side. So we're negotiating what I'll call, again, typically non-strategic spend initially. That doesn't mean we can't do strategic spend, and we do strategic spend, in fact. But the indirect side is a very easy space, and the direct side is where we also are, managing today. So we go across indirect. Indirect is the easiest place to start. Direct is definitely where, we see game-changing kind of opportunity. And then, like you say, SaaS contracts and things like that, we actually have negotiated those. They're not always the first place to start, but we're doing multi-million-dollar actually negotiations. And so we can handle it. It's just that's not necessarily where we focus today.
So this is clearly, though, it's the smallest company that you've been part of, I would say, given the other two are quite much more mature.
Yes.
And are you the first CFO that Pactum AI has had? Or
I am the first CFO. I think there was a head of finance previously.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to speak to people like yourself who are stepping in as a leader and get to prioritize and sort of architect the finance function. At least from my way of thinking, you're going to be very influential for years, even if you're still not part of the company anymore. Just given the groundwork here, when you step in, and again, it was 12 months ago. What needed to be done? What was your first 12 months about, really?
Yeah. So just a little bit about stepping in for a minute. I really wanted to become a CFO. I haven't always, but that's been on my, career pathing and vision for a number of years. Um, and it was hard to leave UiPath, by the way, but after 4 years there, and going through everything I had gone through, I thought, okay, I'm ready, and I'm not going to become the CFO of UiPath. And so that's how I kind of start to look for another, again, I'll call it technology potential leader, and try and find Pactum. And the reason I chose Pactum, and I always say I kind of evaluate a number of different things, but one, I love the technology. So it is, if you know UiPath, you know the automation side of that technology, and I'm a tech person, and the automation and the AI piece of the technology we have at Pactum to me is super interesting, and I think very valuable to enterprises. Secondly, I think we have a tremendous growth opportunity in front of us. So again, not only is this to me category creating technology, but it was, had standard products, and we were in a year last year of commercialization. How do we start to sell that technology in a repeatable, meaningful, way? So I saw the growth, and I knew with my previous experience, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but the go-to-market side of the financial sort of strategic piece they needed from a CFO, I had. And so I felt really good moving into this position and being able to support the leadership team and the board on thinking through how do we commercialize this business. And so that was really, what prompted me. And I'd say the first 12 months in this job, 13 months in this job has been a lot about internally building the business model, figuring out our go-to-market motion, pricing and packaging, from an operational business model perspective. And then I'd say from a more strategic perspective, it's been about education, first of all, within the business, teaching everyone what it means to be an enterprise technology company. What are the key metrics and KPIs that folks, investors care about? And then also spending a lot of time with investors, which has been eye-opening, the new learning for me here, but also the most fascinating and one of my favorite parts of the job.
I wonder, from what you just shared, whether you might prioritize a little differently than a CFO, clearly in a more mature company, where you could say, well, we can outsource this for now. This is something that's not where I need to be focused. Or we don't want to make that senior hire this year. It's coming. But right now, if I was to allocate or try to hire someone, it would be here. So we can build this team and get the commercialization piece where it needs to be. Could you share some of the trade-offs? Maybe you're like, okay, this is important, but for me right now, and where the organization needs to demonstrate to investors, this is where we need to focus.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus for us is definitely the repeatable go-to-market motion.
Yeah, that's right.
We spent a lot of time last year thinking through, again, and some of it wasn't thinking through. Some of it was historical ways we sold, because the business has been around and selling since 2020, since 2020. So, they tried different, I'll call it more project-based pricing and project-based revenue before kind of really the software was built. And again, that pivot into what I'll call just repeatable license software sales, really kind of took effect last year. I spent a lot of my time thinking through the pricing and packaging, and again, how to hit the metrics that we know we want to be. The business, I've been very thankful from coming into the business. It's been very, it's not bootstrapped by any means, but it is very conscious about adding any burn to the business, and we look at that on a monthly basis. So yes, you're right. All companies care about this, but coming in at a small company, early stage, cash burn is definitely a big focus, and we monitor that very closely. And frankly, I really appreciate, the business and the company coming to me oftentimes with nearly every ask to say, what do you think? Should we do this? This isn't something I run rated from last year. This would be a new investment. And we make those decisions really thoughtfully here. From building out a team and building out systems and things like that, we're not there quite yet. I think those are on the horizon. But this will be another year of really kind of getting the growth to the point where we'll start to make, I'll call it more mature finance build decisions and other, I'll say, operating team business decisions. Today, it's all about keep building the technology, the R&D space, and keep supporting the go-to-market team to get all these, inbound leads that are coming our way, to get across all those companies and get them up and running on our technology.
Yeah, just the, again, you put some emphasis, I think, on the pricing dynamics and how, during your first year, it seems like you really studied this really closely. It came up to speed to understand better what wasn't working and what could be achieved if we did it differently. Can you shed any light on how that happens? Who are you collaborating with? And I guess it's the product people and the sales people, and there's a whole obvious group of people. But as from your past experience, how this environment and trying to come up to speed so quickly as a CFO has to, what it required in terms of you getting the information you needed to
Yeah. Thankfully, first of all, everybody, we are a very collaborative organization here. And we're very transparent. So I think, here the culture is like, even one of our values is you have to be able to swim and help in different lanes when you need to. And that's a traditional, I'll say, startup mentality anyway. I always say you're going to wear a lot of hats in these kind of companies. So I spent time with the co-founders, like you said. I traveled to Estonia. So we have a big Estonia, heartbeat, if you will, to the company, similar to kind of UiPath and the Romania heartbeat that exists there. But so I spent time in Estonia. I spent time with the leadership team, and I spent time with our VP of sales and our sellers. More recently, I've spent more time with customers as well and trying to understand their pain points and what they're trying to solve. But there's a lot of similarities to sort of experiences I've had in the past. So from that perspective, it hasn't been that hard of a learning curve. I think the biggest part for me here has been the R&D side of what we build and how we deploy, and learning really how to kind of think about investment in that function and how to challenge. Everybody always needs people and wants more people, and trying to really understand that piece of it has been interesting, because the technology is in a great state. But in like every company, there's going to always be continued features and functionality enhancements. And just trying to really understand that side of it has been where I focused some more of my time than I think, has been a big learning.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for explaining that. That's helpful. Curious how the company is leveraging AI as a competitive advantage. I mean, that seems to be what you're suggesting, that this company's got something that maybe companies aren't willing to tackle on their own. We're going to help you negotiate better, quicker, at less cost, I would imagine. And there's AI behind that. Is that what you're telling us? Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I'm telling you. Now, listen, I'm not a tech expert. As I told you just a minute ago, I'm learning. But what I do know about the business, like I said, inherently, we've been AI from the beginning. One of our co founders has a PhD in mathematics and was an AI lead at Starship, the autonomous delivery company in Europe, founded in Europe, I think. But in any case, what we spent in the technology in the first year or two, and still, frankly, always, of course, enhancing and developing, is we've built this AI stack, and I'll simplify it. So, because I'm not going to be an LLM expert with you right now, and I can give you some context on LLMs, but what we did is we built all the language around negotiations. We built all of the algorithms and the math around in the technology, and we use AI today in LLMs in a safe way, is what I would say. We use it to help one maybe build more code, right, and build thoughtful code and more productive code. And I'm probably, engineers are listening to me saying, what the hell is she talking about? But we use it from that perspective. We use LLMs to help us think about phrasing negotiations in a different way. Should I be more aggressive or softer in this language? Most of our technology and all of it is very rules-based AI. So when I say that, I mean, we can't have an LLM negotiating with a supplier. Our customers, they're the Fortune 1000. They're not going to let an LLM go wild on negotiations that are totally open-ended. Ours are not open-ended. They're controlled through rules. So that's kind of how I think about the technology. There's a whole tech stack behind this that you got to get a different person on the call for that to pitch. But yeah, it's the generational AI thing has definitely momentum has definitely pushed a lot of folks to understand AI and truly define what it is. We use digital agents here, and that is true. We don't have people behind our technology doing a negotiation and just pushing a button to make it look like there's a digital agent there. The solution and the algorithms truly do all of that based on rules that our customers give us.
Okay, before we move to our finance strategic moment question, I wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of give a CFO's perspective on this offering. When it comes to negotiation, we've been told it's more an art than a science. You folks would have us believe otherwise, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I'd say is, and I love this question because I think we should be on a CFO's radar for sure from a technology perspective. And I think about it in a couple ways. Very tactically from the technology, we have use cases and products that solve for commercial terms negotiations, just getting you better working capital negotiations. We have technology that helps you manage your contract costs and literally gets you hard savings cost reduction, and negotiates that on your behalf. And the reason why a CFO or someone should be interested in this technology is because likely, again, especially in that big Fortune 2000 category, 80% of your contracts are probably not getting negotiated every year, and there's value left in them for you and for the other side. So you should explore that, right? And you should, and everybody cares about cost today because growth is so hard. So we can solve those problems for you. And that's why so many of the Fortune 2000 are coming to us. So that's that's how I think about the technology. Now, the last thing I'd kind of leave you with, and we do not lead with this, but I come from UiPath and automation technology. And frankly, there's obviously a ton of automation opportunity, and I'll call them soft savings in, again, how you spend your time, how many resources or headcount do you have to solve your negotiations and your contract management. Our technology can help you from that perspective too. I don't even quantify that in our customer agreements today when we talk about savings and what we're trying to achieve. We don't ever really quantify and claim that as the ROI on this, unless a customer, of course, that's their prerogative and their initiative. But that is typically not why they're coming to us. But that's like the added non-tactical benefit, I'd say, this technology is doing. It's a solution ready today out of the box that you can deploy in spaces that you're probably not, and relatively low cost. And you will see payback in 1 quarter of implementing this technology. I'm confident.
Great. Thank you for that. We're going to jump to our finance strategic moment question, where we ask you just for one moment of insight that you've experienced along the way during your career. It might have been 20 years ago. It might have been last week. But what would you share with us when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about like how finance plays a role in the strategy of a business, I think all my experiences at GE, of course, I understand that. But until I really was the go-to-market finance leader at UiPath, where I had a direct line to the CFO, he was my manager, my boss, but a dotted line to the CRO and peers to all of the CRO's direct staff. So all of the geo leaders, the channel leaders, the services leader, all of that team. I don't think I truly understood, like, I'll be very specific, how kind of sales and marketing worked in an enterprise technology company. I hadn't been in just that at this scale and with such great experts coming into the business. And again, I'm playing this kind of dual role because I know from all of my experience and from leading FP&A at UiPath in the beginning stages, what those metrics are and what the business plans are and the metrics we want to hit and the margins we want to have and the key KPIs and the net retention rates and the rule of 40. Like, that's all in my, it's just how I live. But I'm seeing this other piece of the business, which is how do we grow the business and what are the operational aspects of a sales and go-to-market function to drive really top line, with an eye on, of course, what are the operational costs that drive that. So I get a much better appreciation in that role on how hard it is to just like give a target to someone. Not that we did this, but I remember worlds where we gave targets and said, here's what your growth is going to be and figure it out. And now in this role, it's like, this is a negotiation. This is a conversation. This is hard to do. And let me show you what this means to grow at this level across the world at the same time, when a little bit of it was, this transition to you can't grow at all costs anymore moment. So for me, I think that was one, just the business acumen I picked up from all those experts in that go-to-market business side, that I had not had that experience before in the past. With my finance cap always on, gave me such an appreciation for how hard it is to grow, how hard it is to recruit top talent, how hard it is to enable these functions to perform, and the investment required to do all of that. So now, for me, that was really kind of the aha moment that I think I appreciate very much. Finance can't just tell you what you need to do. It's a conversation with the business on how to do that, on how to get there. And I really got a great, learning opportunity to just to build up that piece, to build those relationships and learn that side of the business.
$37,025 won. These are the 3 numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI. We're going to jump to what we refer to as our mentoring round, where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. Wasn't too long ago. We want you to look back to your first 60 days in the role. And we're sure you had a copy of that. What is it, the first 100 days or the first 80 days? I forget.
Yeah.
Senior folks who step into leadership roles. But there must have been something those books didn't include, or something you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself. That's what we're looking for. Something that, if you could just whisper something in your ear, 11 months ago, what would it have been?
Yeah, I remember coming in and there was a decision on, we had some cash in the bank, and they said, let's invest it in some CDs or, some money market accounts. And I said, I don't know. I gotta we have a couple banks, and I just want to explore this. And in the first week or so, this comes up, and I felt pressured to make the decision, because I think they had been sitting on that decision previously for a few months. So we decided to put them in some CDs. It wasn't just CDs, but accounts. And then the FRB thing blew up, and we were a First Republic banking entity, and we were nervous. We wanted to have our cash, right? And so we had to break a number of CDs there that cost us a little bit of money. And now, I don't think I could have done anything to prevent, obviously, the FRB situation. But I always say to myself, I wish I wouldn't have made that decision so quickly. I wish I would have said, I get it. If it were my own money, I want to invest it, right? I want to make a couple percent on it. But I wish and again, I think it was just bad timing at the end of the day. But I wish in that moment I would have said, give me a second. I know this is important to you, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like we were going to make that much interest, and we were foregoing so much. And I just wish I had paused on that. Obviously, in hindsight, that's the main reason. And yeah, that's one
funny.
I think
It
I
just
learned
seems
on.
so long ago now. It was only 12 months ago. It's just, It does really seem like it is in the past already, but great example for us. Thank you. We'd like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for us. We're wondering if there's something your colleagues just don't know about you, something maybe most people don't know about you. Anything? It's a tough question.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm an open book, so most people know a lot about me if they've asked. That's for sure. I don't necessarily lead with sort of everything all the time, but I think what I'd say is, if you don't know this about me, I love to learn, and I don't it can be anything. It can be learn a new recipe, and it could be travel and go, visit a new place that I haven't been before, and show my family and children, that world. So for me, if I'm not always learning, and I say this nearly every day, so people that do know me know, oh, that's my learning moment today. When I learn something new, I say it. That's something I learn new every day. And that phrase, you learn something new every day. So I really like learning because I get bored very quickly. And most people know that about me. Between UiPath and Pactum, I took some time, just a couple months off. I thought I would have taken more actually, but I didn't because I got a little bored. But during that time, I went and got my bareboat license, so I can drive a 45 up to 52-foot catamaran on my own. I went down to the British Virgin Islands and did that, and I did that by myself. And my husband said, go ahead, go take 10 days and do that. And I have to say, I had a couple painkillers. It wasn't that bad. It was great, but I, met a whole bunch of new people I had never met before and did that because it was just one of those things I had always wanted to do. I love being on the water. I love boating. And, what I'd say is I always.
So this goes back. This is like 10 years ago. You said, I want to get that license someday, or.
Yeah, well, I love being on boats, and I've been on boats for a number of years. Yeah, so it was something I did for myself, and I'm really glad I did. And we'll get back there soon as a family as well.
Excellent, thank you. Wondering if you have a book recommendation for us. It doesn't have to be a business book. Could be something you escape with, or something an interest you have.
Yeah, right now I'm not. I knew you were going to ask me this too, and I just didn't. I'm not going to lie. I'm not reading anything because I'm working a lot, and then we ski every weekend.
Oh, you do?
So we have a house in Vermont, and so our kids are on a development ski pro team, and so we go up there every weekend, and that's how I escape today and get away is get on the mountain.
Was it one of the better seasons up there, or just in recent
years? It wasn't. It was.
Yeah.
It's going to be a quick season, I think. Yeah. Unless we get some 4-footer, in the next couple of days, we're going to be done in a couple of weeks. But It's always a great time up.
Yep. And we're on to next year, so we'll see. Well, we're up to our final question, and we'd like you to look forward finally 12 months. And we're wondering what your priorities are for the coming 12 months as CFO.
One is fundraising. So we're going to be doing fundraising at the company, and we're in that process now, frankly. And so that's one. Two is executing to that business plan that we've developed, and we're running the business to today. I think as I say internally all the time, and I think about it with our co-founders, and I pitch investors, this is going to be a really profound year for the business. I think I said it today in a Slack. It's going to be a banger of a year. I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us. We have tons of great customers, and more adding on every day. And the ROI and the value we're providing is going to start to get out there, and people are going to hear about it in meaningful ways. So for me, it's living up to our potential. Because it's there. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on your podcast and maybe somebody will hear it. I really believe it. And I look forward to us doing that in 12 months. You should check back with me. I think we're going to say we had a great year. We already had a great year last year. This is going to be a really interesting, pivotal year.
Sarah Alper, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. We hope 2024 is treating you well. If you haven't already, we hope you'll pay a visit to cfothoughtleader.com and go ahead and subscribe to our Mentoring Round newsletter, where we highlight the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our recent CFO guests. Also, LinkedIn users, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.